Okay, so peep this. You are Capcom and you're knee-deep in your dork years. Bionic Commando and Resident Evil 5 just came out, making you a laughingstock, and your worst years with DMC, Devil May Cry, and Ashura's Wrath are about to come. Okay, I kinda love Ashura's Wrath. At this point, you were trying to get that lucrative Call of Duty money, so you took a look at your catalog and thought, hey, here's that okay reviewed but pretty well-selling game we made, why not do a sequel? But your directors quickly realized that they couldn't match COD even on writing, so they went for the only arrow in their bow. Have you ever wanted to kill an alien bigger than the Nakatomi Plaza? Would you like to? And thus, Lost Planet 2 was born and released to a grand welcome of shit. 6 out of 10. Now, 6 out of 10 games I find I either love or hate with nothing in between. So, heaven or hell, let's rock. Actually, starting this band is one of the more interesting parts of this game. So when I started this review, Capcom had not yet eradicated games for Windows Live from the Steam version of this game, and remember, their cure to helping their consumers get past draconian DRM is to pretend the game never existed. After a not insignificant amount of fiddling with the same patch from last time, put in your binaries folder, okay? Where's the binaries folder? I finally got into the game, recorded for 2 days, and then, only then, Capcom patched out games for Windows Live, which came with the side effect of nuking my save file using Nevic's orbital laser. Great start, Capcom. So now, okay, maybe not by the time you see this video, the game will have been put back onto storefronts. However, removing GFWL had another issue. Doing so killed the multiplayer. Well, that's not a problem, I'm just gonna play the campaign, right? Let's just get into that. The first casualty of the game is the storyline, which is comprehensive as a drunken spider web. Lost Planet 2 takes place a decade after the events of the first game. Nevic is on the back foot after Harmonizers became widespread. Now even small bands of snow pirates can take down scores of Nevic forces and embolden attacks on each other. If you don't remember, the Harmonizer was the device that allowed Wayne to heal up after damage from the last game. Not only that, turns out beating up the local fauna and causing widespread use of thermal energy is quickly terraforming the planet. And to make it even more fun, the Akrid go ballistic in warm environments. That's where the plot goes off the rails. Lost Planet 2 is broken up into multiple episodes, with each focusing on a completely different group of pirates. No one in the entire game except for 4 individual pirates are given proper names, dehumanizing them quite a bit. While the individual stories are decently compelling, this means that the game completely lacks a through line for you to care about. Until the 4th chapter, maybe the end of the 3rd, you have no idea where the plot is going. It's only after the end of the 3rd chapter that you get told that
it's beginning to look just like an ice world. Oh boy, here we go.
a massive city-sized Akrid is sucking up all the thermal energy in the planet, and that Nevic plans to use the destruction of this Akrid to unleash all that thermal energy, collect it all, and leave the planet to freeze to death. And then, once the plot finally has some traction, the Vagabundos rear their heads to completely derail the tension. Now, admittedly, each chapter does have a tenuous link to the ending, but especially the Waysiders in episode 1 and the Vagabundos in episode 5 are easily yada-yada'd away without incident. Now, admittedly, while I will shit on the overall story, like I said, the individual stories themselves are pretty okay, and the final chapter is finally back to that good B-movie sci-fi schlock I loved from the first game. When that commander is giving his passionate speech to all of EDN III, I felt that. Hoorah! Okay, so the story is the world's most drunken tapestry, but holy shit, the graphics are amazing. Continuing the original game's amazing art style, ratchet up the detail, and finally give us variety in environments. From the frost-covered landscapes we all know and, well, I love, to vast temperate jungles, to endless sandy deserts, to freaking space, this game nails it all. Details even extend to the character models. There's a ton of variety in the pirate designs this time, and variety even amongst the factions themselves. And the small details during combat sell it. This game is still rated teen, but the game goes as hard as it can with that. Thermal energy replaces blood as it flies out of enemy combatants. The updated ragdolls send enemies flying when shot with heavy-duty guns, and headshots are punctuated with a bright orange flash. It could get body parts blown off, spew thermal energy, and even melt into chunks, revealing their insides and bones. Hell yes! And the sound design is upgraded across the board. All the guns still have generally the same sound, but a lot of the work has more punch, more bass, more oomph to really make gunplay a hell of a lot more satisfying. And surprisingly, the voice acting is the right cut of prime ham. Just enough effort with just enough silly to really make the cutscenes a treat to watch. I was surprised with how many S-bombs they got past the ESRB though, making me wonder why they didn't just go all the way and make this an M-rated game. Not like it ever stopped God. God, I can't actually wait to start playing. This looks so much better. Touchdown into EDN III. Akrid right ahead. And who are these dickwads? And just like that, like a plot twist in a psychological horror tale, the true terrible nature of this game is revealed. Lost Planet 2 is obsessively multiplayer focused. Even if you play alone, you are highly encouraged to keep that AI player count to a maximum to share the load. Missions are no longer mild jogs from A to B with a boss fight at the end. Now the games are broken up into larger chapters with about 3 to 5 smaller areas each, not counting Chapter 3 which throws this formula out with the bathwater. But there's still a lot of trucking from A to B. Occasionally be called upon to do objectives, raise data posts, kill certain Akrid, hold locations, all the fun of the shooter fair. Areas start out fairly short and milquetoast, but snowball into marathon death marches by the end. Thankfully, the core of the previous game is still very much here, however the controls have been hit with a hammer and are all over the place. For this playthrough, I stuck with the controller, which had its own technical issues, but I won't dent the game for that, because of a bunch of smaller brand new mechanics or previous game mechanics that now need to be changed to accommodate 4 people, and the developer's baffling existence? No shit, Sherlock. And now the developer's baffling insistence on having a 90-degree turn option, everything else but the core was changed. On the ground you get a few new tools, you can cancel your anchor to zip around the map faster, and you can actually run by holding down the melee button. I am getting Dark Souls vibes. On top of this, you also have what is essentially a thermal energy gun. You can use this to top off your teammates, unlock chests, and power up certain VS suits. The main controls on the ground aren't the issue, it's hopping into VS suits where everything tends to go ass over tea kettle. See, to accommodate features like your friends hanging onto VS suits, taking up other slots on those suits, or what have you, what used to be a simple one-button start process is now a 2-step process of pressing the button to get into the suit, and then the button on the other side of the controller to activate it. That will take time to get used to, and it's even more of a pain in the ass in a heated fight that can easily get you killed. Once you actually get the tub of metal off the ground, you find it can't do much at all. That's because most bonus features of the VS suits have been remapped to holding the analog stick down. Why? While this includes things like dashes and high jumps, it also includes things like the VS's exclusive weapons. Imagine trying to hold down the left analog stick, aim with the right, and pressing the triggers. And even if the controls aren't overly complex, they're stupidly overlapped. Sprinting away from a VS suit for whatever reason becomes a Herculean task because they're mapped to the same button for whatever reason. The whole game has a complexity addition that kills the controls if you can't get to grips with them. Capcom, keep your fighting game inputs inside the fighting games! Although, it's not like I can blame everything on the controls. Even the health system is affected by this malarkey. So, the Harmonizers seen in this game are now mass-produced versions of Wayne's Harmonizer. They heal ridiculously slowly on their own and have to be manually activated to achieve the bonuses they used to. This is, in my opinion, a completely understandable debuff. The Harmonizer in the previous game made you only killable by overkill. So what button on the default control scheme is the Harmonizer button? It's okay, I'll give you a few seconds to figure it out. Hands up if you guessed the fucking start button. All this crap on the controller and you couldn't have mapped it to an actual function button? And you want to know the fun part? This didn't help the immortality issue. See, because now you can die a lot easier, the game needed a way to prevent death from becoming as big as an issue as in the last game. So now, completing objectives gives you battle points. When a player dies, and only a player, thank God, you are deducted battle points and get stuck on bare minimum supplies. Run out, game over. However, if all human players on the game are competent, that gauge will never hit 0. There are other instant fail conditions, but they are few and far between, meaning the game on standard difficulty has the frustration, but not much actual challenge. Hey, I managed to patch up your kidney, but to do it I needed to stab you in the other kidney. After everything I've talked about, you'd hope the actual act of shooting people at aliens is finally finally unscuffed. And I am very sorry. Yeah, it mostly is. When you're not fighting the controls, combat in this game is pretty wicked. Unfortunately, the game is now skewed towards the humans over the aliens, but even still, the game constantly throws you new environments, scenarios, keeps you well stocked on ammo, and only has a few moments of annoyance or cheatiness that keeps the game going strong. Lost Planet was a gingerly stroll of a game. Lost Planet 2 is a constant sprint. You are almost always under attack from something. While the mechanics are nothing amazing, the excellent audio and visual feedback means fighting is never outright boring. However, I said mostly because the game didn't escape unscuffed. See, there's a ton of variety in the VS suits themselves. You've got so many new toys to play with, 5 brand new guns to choose between, including just straight up a giant lightsaber to smack little baby men off into the water. But I'd say about 60% of this game, you're on foot, so what do we get for human weapons? You get a pistol, that is it. In fact, they actually took away some weapons. No energy gun and no plasma rifle for you. They are in the game, I sensed it, but you don't get to use them unless you're in the oh wait. That means the weapon roster can get rather repetitive. It's just machine gun, shotgun, rocket launcher, rifle, machine gun, shotgun, rocket launcher, shotgun, rifle, machine gun, rocket launcher. It can get rather repetitive. Sure, you can grab VS weapons, but that comes with its own kettle of fish and chips from the first game. But there is something Lost Planet 2 nails, and that is set pieces. Every single chapter has some big defining moment or multiple that leads to a momentary crescendo in the non-stop breakneck pace. Whether it be assaulting a key location and trying to hold it down while being assaulted from every which way, flying after a giant machine, a quick game of missile command, the campaign is loaded with memorable missions. As flawed as the game can be, they manage to do the impossible and make a lot of theoretically bad ideas really fun, like an entire city burning around you or a pure underwater mission. And of course, the reason you came to the first game, and the reason you picked this one up, boss fights. And LP2 will not let you walk away disappointed. It is a veritable feast of giant foes as far as the eye can see. Both VS, some of which stretch the fucking definition of the suit in a Vital Suit, and the biggest Akrid in the series to date. To show you how we're ramping things up, the first boss you fight in the game is a giant leggy boy that was from Chapter 5 of the first game. The final boss of this episode? Something that looks like it would eat the green eye for lunch. When I said you'd fight an Akrid the size of the Nakatomi Plaza, I wasn't being ridiculous. I was sold on the idea of killing a skyscraper-sized Akrid, and I wasn't disappointed. And I even got to shoot it with the big gun. I'd usually drop a spoiler warning, but I don't care. The final boss is the size of a fucking city. You run through the final boss to get to its core. It is so massive, it bursts other boss Akrid. This is it. Nothing compares. Name a bigger final boss. I dare you. However, this climactic moment is ruined a bit by the AI just kinda sitting on its own, not doing much of anything for this final chapter. And that means it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. So much of Lost Planet was sacrificed on the altar of multiplayer that it ends up bogging the game down where it doesn't need to. This game has the same funky smell that was washing over Resident Evil 5, and some areas in this game feel eerily familiar. But whereas Resident Evil 5 sacrificed its horror to create a co-op experience, this should have been a slam dunk for Lost Planet. Take the action, multiply it by 4, it shouldn't have been that hard! I haven't even mentioned the fact that there's VS Suits, an entire boss dedicated around cooperative players working in tandem. Which means that the decision to remove the multiplayer from this game was a death blow that kills my recommendation stone dead. This game cries out to be played with soulmates that can now never heed its call. Lost Planet 2 is the most polarizing game in recent memory I played. The visuals, the audio work, and when you're actually running around gunning people down, it's a fantastic campaign that lasts a rather beefy 10 to 14 hours depending on skill. But the flaws of this game are bone deep. The story being hacked to bits makes it difficult to care about, the bungling of the controls makes everything a lot harder to do, and the enforced multiplayer now that doesn't even work, forcing you to rely on brain-dead AI partners, sucks a lot of the enjoyment I had with the first game. Lost Planet 2 has by far higher highs than Lost Planet 1, skyscraper Akrid-sized highs, but when it hits its lows, the whole thing comes crashing down. whereas I feel that Lost Planet 1's a lot less exciting, but as a whole delivers a more satisfying and consistent campaign. Because while I can think of a lot of stuff that annoyed me about Lost Planet 2, Lost Planet 1 never dips in quality until the very end. This is the first game I'm revisiting from my childhood on this channel that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Easily, my nostalgia doesn't overpower the neutral feeling this game gave me. And here's the thing, I'm sure with repeat playthroughs, I could get over some of these issues and truly come to love this game for the classic it could be. But no, it's just not for me. And fuck you, Capcom, for dealing the killing blow to what could have been a fun multiplayer experience. Alone, I can finally see what those 6 out of 10 scores were about. Which means, unfortunately, Lost Planet is 1 for 3 right now. And from what I hear, we're in for a rough conclusion. I'm rather bitter about that. But hey, I got a question for you. Do you know of any obscure games or forgotten franchises? That game only you and your friends ever seem to know about? That title you heard in hushed whispers on the school playground? Or those entries that seem like a fever dream you had a million years ago? Drop them in the comments, and your game may not just get featured on this channel, but you get a personal shout out. The more the merrier. My name has been UnbornDecay, and I'll see you on the other side.